Thank you for joining us today. Um, what is your name and what is your profession?
My name is Susan Haig, and I'm a professor of wildlife ecology at Oregon State University.
What do you do, like, as an ornithologist?
I'm an ornithologist, which means I study birds, and mostly I study the status of birds that are endangered. So that means I use genetic markers to try and assess populations, and then I work on rebuilding those populations.
Okay, that's really cool. When were you first interested in birds, and what sparked your interest?
Well, I always wanted to, from like the time I was 4, I wanted to be a biologist because our family went camping and my mom always took us out into nature. But I thought I was going to study butterflies. And it wasn't until I was in college and a professor I worked for took us out birding, and I just couldn't believe what birds I saw. So that is what got me hooked.
That's fascinating. What's so fascinating about kestrels?
Kestrels?
You research them.
Oh, kestrels, first of all, they're beautiful. I mean, they are just amazing. And people consider them to be very common, but we were concerned about them, and it turns out that our concern was correct. So it's one of those things that I thought, for such a beautiful common bird, it would be helpful to look and see how they were doing, and it turns out they weren't doing so well. So now there's efforts to conserve kestrels.
Okay. In your paper about kestrels, why did you choose the places that you did?
Well, that's interesting because I'm also a geneticist, so I study genetics, and it turns out we wanted to get, as a geneticist, we want to sample populations. In a perfect world, we'd sample the entire species, and so you can't sample every bird, but we wanted to get as representative a sampling of the populations that they occurred in as possible, because you want to be able to compare the population you're concerned with the rest of the species, because then you know whether that population is doing better or worse than the rest of them.
Okay. In the graph here, why did you think that some of the kestrels had less diversity in DNA than some had more?
Well, that's the crux of the whole question, right? And we wanted to know which populations had better genetic diversity and which didn't. And so when we found out that the kestrels from the southeast United States had less genetic diversity and they seemed to be declining, people aren't seeing them as much, that's what made us start to think, oh, they might be in trouble, and to get people more aware of the fact that they might be in trouble.
You've already kind of answered this question, but are kestrel numbers declining?
Yes, they are.
If so, why do you think they're declining?
Well, they're declining across their entire range because people use pesticides on their fields, and the pesticides kill the insects that they're eating, and they also tend to kill the mice that they would catch. So their food is being erased by agricultural uses, and they're disappearing rapidly, actually.
Why do some kestrels migrate and some don't?
That is the question of the year. Birds usually migrate because they can't find enough food to eat where they are, right? So like the birds in the Arctic migrate because it's snowing and there's nothing for them to eat. The birds here do the same thing. What's ironic is the Willamette Valley here is a really important wintering site for kestrels. So kestrels from further north spend the winter here. You'll see far more kestrels here in the winter than you do in the summer.
That's very interesting. How far do the kestrels that migrate on average?
It varies so much. They can migrate thousands of miles, but on average, I don't think they go that far. I think they go just as far as they have to get food.
Okay. Are kestrels very territorial?
Yes. Yep. You can watch the males. They'll be on telephone wires, and they'll be like 100 meters apart. And if the other, another male kestrel comes into their territory, they'll chase them off.
Are kestrels used as hunter birds, for example, getting rid of sparrows, mice, and other annoying small creatures?
They are, yes, but the thing is, I'm not sure what you're asking. Are you asking, do people use them?
Yeah, do people use them to hunt?
No, I think they just occur in barns, and they do hunt around farms, but
Okay.
they aren't like the birds that the people that what am I trying to say? The falconers don't really use them as hunting birds.
Okay. How dense are kestrel feathers?
How dense are kestrel feathers? I don't know. Did you have a reason for asking that? Were you thinking that they were dense or not?
It was a question my dad recommended when I was typing the questions.
Oh, when you were doing it. Yeah, I just don't know.
Okay. What type of beak do they have?
Well, they have that curved raptor beak because, as you know, raptors, like kestrels are falcons, right? So they'll catch their prey with their talons, but then they rip apart the prey with their beak. So they have to have a sharp enough beak to rip mice apart.
Okay. What is the percentage of... we'll just skip that question. What are some tips to photographing kestrels?
They are hard. They are so wary. I guess you just have to be patient. I mean, when I try and photograph kestrels, I drive around the airport and around Finley Refuge, and it's when they're up on the wire, they'll just fly to the next pole. I mean, they're very frustrating. But you can't really get great shots for them up on the telephone pole wires anyway, because you're like looking up. I try and, it's like you almost just have to get lucky and not make any movements. Like if you come upon them, you have to be ready and take the picture because they are very wary.
Okay, what are some tips to birding, just in general?
Kestrels or any bird?
Just any bird.
Oh, you got to go out. I mean, that's the thing, is that the best way to get better at birds is to just go out and look at them and see if you can identify them, or else go out with someone that knows. When you start off, going out with someone that knows makes a big difference, because it can be daunting. But if, you start to get to know, like, the first 10, 15 birds, then it gets easier. But just starting out, it can be hard.
Okay. Thank you very much, Professor Haig. That was a very interesting interview.
Oh, well, thank you, Ben. Thanks for asking me.
Thank you very much.